والشفع والوتر والليل إذا يسر هل في ذلك قسم لذي حجر ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بعاد إرم ذات العماد التي لم يخلق مثلها في البلاد وثمود الذين جابوا الصخر بالواد وفرعون ذي الأوتاد الذين طغوا في البلاد فأكثروا فيها الفساد فصب عليهم ربك سوط عذاب إن ربك لبالمرصاد فأما الإنسان إذا ما ابتلاه ربه فأكرمه ونعمه
purge, cleanse myself. I wanted to feel some degree of humility. Like I said, I was running businesses, I was earning a lot of money, and when you earn a lot of money, unfortunately, what happens most of the time is that a person stops being humble. And one of the core fundamental principles of Islam is humility. So I went with this idea that I was going to pray behind the Imam, and at the end of it, I was going to hopefully be able to do something which will increase my humility, which will allow me to reconnect again with the Deen in a way which is away from the ritual of praying and fasting and all of this. Sometimes we need to connect at a deeper level. So as soon as Salah finished, I turned around and I see a man wearing a tube, and he had a nice long beard as well. I said, oh, this guy he's a religious man. He doesn't look like me, he's a religious man for sure. So I asked him, doctor, be careful, that's a broken chair, I think. Doctor, be careful. That chair is broken, doctor. It's okay? So I asked him, look, my dear brother, I don't know if you're the right person, but I want to do something that's going to increase my humility. Can I please clean the toilets? I said, please, can I clean the toilets? And he said to me, you can go and clean the toilets now, no problem. Do as you want. You don't need to ask permission to do these things. It's the house of Allah. You don't need to take permission from a man. I said, I know, but I don't want to do it just once. I want to be able to voluntarily do it again and again and again. I want to know if there's some system for me to be able to volunteer myself for the betterment of the Deen. And if that means I clean toilets, alhamdulillah, I'm prepared to do that. He said, okay, let me take your number and I'll call you if we have any voluntary positions. 2 or 3 weeks went by, and then he calls me and he says to me, brother, you can come and clean the toilets whenever you want, but I also have something else which you might be interested in. I have a vacancy for a teacher of English. Something I forgot to mention is, aside from this work that I do, I run a human rights organization. So we are working with many different poverty-stricken communities across the world. So he said to me, brother, I know that you're working with poor kids across the world, so that's why I'm asking you, maybe you can come along and you can teach English. You have a good command of English. I said, I'm not a teacher, I'm not a qualified teacher. I have never studied in this field, so I'm not really sure if I can help you, but by all means, I'm prepared. I'll try to do the best that I can, but I don't know if that's going to be very good. I went along. I have 4 sisters. God has graced me with 4 sisters. Out of 4 sisters, 3 of them are teachers. I just mimicked what they were talking about when they were coming home. I just mimicked the level of education that I received when I was in a secondary school. A lot of it was copy and paste. It was nothing of my own. Now the thing is, this is the reality about Muslim schools, is that most Muslim schools, they will hire people who have come from a system, an education system, where it's similar to the education system of that school. So if you are running a madrasa, most of the people who will teach in a madrasa have also taught in a madrasa, right? And that's fantastic because there is a shared experience. But it's also a bit problematic because it means that it's a closed experience. So those children really don't truly benefit from everyone. They are only benefiting from one type of experience. So for me, going to this school, I was able to give some of these children another experience. Most of the teachers in the school were alims or they were hufaz, but I was neither of those things. You know, I hadn't lived that life. Yes, I prayed, yes, I fasted, yes, I observed Islam, but I hadn't come from this background. For a lot of these children, they looked at me and they saw someone who was, someone obviously in authority, the teacher, but also someone who's very different to everything that they have seen within their institution so far. That has benefits, it also has disadvantages. Anyway, if I fast forward about 1 year, this school that I was working in, it was called Darul Ulum. It appeared on national television. What happened was a media company had come into the masjid and the school, and they had inputted little cameras into the spines of the Quran. So they were filming and hearing everything. And in this TV program, they showed that in my school, there were some teachers who were beating the students. And there were some teachers that were preaching intolerance, that were saying, don't be like the kafir, you're all going to burn in hell. Things like this. Things that I'm sure we all hear and maybe even speak about every day. But when that appears on national television to a British audience, not a Muslim audience, you are now very much in trouble, let's say. Before I carry on, I'm going to ask one thing. I was just waiting for the room to fill up. I think it's always important to remember that the mu'allim of us as a community is our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I'm going to ask a request, if that's okay with you, because we are lucky. We are almost, I think, maybe 500, 600, 700 people here. And I think we have missed an opportunity. What I'm going to request is, I'm going to read the durood. And whenever you hear me start the durood, please, if you can, in congregation, let's continue that durood on, if that's okay with your permission. Is that okay, Mr. President? So I'm just going to take this opportunity now, and if you please recite with me, I'm going to stop reciting. I want everyone else to recite as well. And if you're filming, film this moment, because this moment can be special. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli ala. You need to read it by yourself. Allahumma salli ala. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. I'm going to try it one more time because for an Islamic audience that was pitiful. It was a disgrace. We'll do it one more time. We are remembering our Prophet. Yeah? Let's remember our Prophet. Allahumma salli ala. Jazakallah khair. I think that was much better. This appeared on the TV, this extreme action. And the reason why I wanted to do the durood right now is because I'm remembering some goodness, and the goodness comes from the way of the Prophet ﷺ. So I just wanted to remember at that moment. My principal of that school, may Allah bless him, he has passed away. He was an angry man. He won't mind me saying that. He was a very angry man. He used to shake his fists. Even when he was smiling, his fists used to shake. And I once asked him, I said to him, please, Ustad, why you're giving me such good feedback, but you look so angry? He said to me, the Prophet ﷺ also used to go red with anger, so all I'm doing is following his sunnah. I said, okay, no problem, no problem. It's a good one to use, especially if you have a wife. You can use that one all the time. So the principal, he was an angry man. What he decided to do is he sacked 80% of the workforce. He fired them. The head teacher, the deputy head teacher, head of Alimiyah, head of Hifz, everyone gone. He turned to me, he said to me, Mabrur, you are going to be the new head teacher. I said, what are you talking about? I'm not even a teacher. And now you have appeared on national television and you're going to put that responsibility on me? He said, your father and your uncle, my father and my uncle, they were the original trustees of the masjid. He said, they were the original trustees. So no one in this community will understand the benefit and, more importantly, the loss of a masjid and madrasa like you. I said, to be honest with you, you're correct. So I reluctantly took the position on. Something is called Ofsted in the UK. Ofsted is like the regulatory body of schools. They came along, they were supposed to come along after 3 months and close the school down. They had already given the notice that the school was going to be closed down because it was an extremist school. My job somehow was to come in and rescue that. I had no experience. Alhamdulillah, after 3 months Ofsted came in, the school didn't close down. They decided to do an inspection 9 months later as well, and they found that the school was the most outstanding school in Birmingham, including secular institutions. So I stand before you with that track record, and from there I went to other schools and did the same thing. I've done some work with some schools in Malaysia. I've done some work with some schools in Nigeria, in Abuja. My dear sisters are here. I'm not sure if they're in the audience, but in Starfield School I've also done some work there, and we established that school from the beginning. All I can say is it's not one person that's responsible for this. There's always a team behind you. And that team is important because the team, first of all, is your management staff. Then it's your students. Then it's your teachers. Then it's your parents. Then it's your service staff. Every single part of that chain is important. As I mentioned to you, I was going to refer back to the idea of parents. When I realized that I was getting a bit too ahead of myself and I was very financially free and I was moving away from the concept and the notions of Islam, I decided to move back home so I can spend some time with my mother and remember my parents. And whenever we're talking about Islamic schools, or any school for that matter, we should really understand one idea. And I'm very glad and grateful that the last presentations were about finance, because I think everyone's mind is about finance at the moment. One word was used in that discussion, the word was transaction. So there is a transaction that takes place between us and our students and the parents every single day. But before that, there's a transaction that takes place from Allah to the parents of a child. That transaction is that we are all creations of Allah. We are creations of Allah. He owns us. He created us. When He gives us to parents, He transfers His amana over us to our parents. So now, as parents, we feel very happy. This is our own little baby. This is our own little child, our little princess, or our wonderful angelic son, whatever it is that we might use. Then you decide that your child has come of an age that they need to go to school. You turn up to a big school like Esteem, or you turn up to a small school in the suburbs of some other state in Nigeria, and you go to the school and the school says to you, we will charge you 15,000 naira per term, or 100,000 naira per term, or even 1 million naira per term, whichever. At that moment, there is another transaction taking place. It's a transfer of amana from the parents to the school. And I mentioned this yesterday at the owner's dinner, but I'm so glad to mention it again today because I think it's more important that the teaching staff who are in the majority here understand this, that when your child is in front of you, and you have 20 students in front of your in your class, and they are misbehaving and they are acting up and they are not learning and they are not understanding what you're trying to tell them to do, you forget that they are an amana to you. Instead, what you end up doing is you start thinking about, if I don't get some results out of these people, my head teacher is going to give me a shouting at. I may even lose my job. When you look at your register at the beginning of the morning, you say 26 students are in attendance, that means 4 are absent. You're talking about them like a number. You've forgotten that they are an amana to you. You've forgotten that the parents have given them to you as an amana, and you forget that Allah has given them to the parents as an amana as well. If we go to the next slide, inshallah. Can we go to the next slide? So the big theme that I've been given is getting the balance. I think we have misunderstood this whole idea of getting the balance. Because which balance are you talking about? Are you talking about the balance between deen and dunya? How do we prepare our children for the akhirah compared to get their next job as a scientist or something? Is that the balance that we are talking about? Or is the balance that we're talking about Islamic education versus secular education? Is that the balance that we're talking about? How do you teach Islam alongside secular? Or how do you teach secular properly? Or how do you teach Islam properly? What are you talking about? The balance, which balance? The next one, are we talking about traditional methods or modern methods? Are we talking, no, go back to the slide please. Are we talking about discipline versus curiosity? How do you get the balance between a child having discipline? They must adhere to your commands. Or should they have curiosity? Are we trying to create inquisitive learners? Which balance in that regard? Finally, subjects and results. I've been to a few Nigerian schools and all I can say to you is, wallahi, you guys have too many subjects. You have way too many subjects, and on top of that you add more subjects as well, which means you have more teachers. When you have more teachers, you have this battle going on, student versus teacher. Who is more important to you now as an owner or as a school? Is it more important that you have a sustainable teaching staff, or is it more sustainable that you have an ever-increasing student number body? So when you're asking me the question, you're asking me to do this presentation of getting the balance, I'm really unsure about which balance you're talking about, because from what I understand, there is many balances that you need to balance in order to move forward. But I think for the vast majority of you, the balance that we're talking about really is this one. And it might be a bit harsh. I don't mean it in a harsh way. I'm just trying to be honest. I think the majority of school owners here and generally in Muslim kind of oriented schools, I think the majority of owners, they have this question in their head. I want to create an environment of Islam. I want to try and promote the deen in the best possible way that I can. But I understand that in order for my school to be recognized as a good, successful school, I need to be able to produce results, which means that these students can make the best in life. So that, to me, if I'm understanding that, because that was a long paragraph, what I understand is you guys are trying to create schools that will allow your children to fit into a Western model. So that maybe they can travel abroad and go to a university and they have recognition of the courses they've done here. But when they go there, that they, excuse my language, they're not going to sleep around, they're not going to take alcohol, they're not going to take drugs, and they have some fundamentals of Islam. I think that's the balance that you all want to create. And normally I don't like to pass judgment, but I will pass judgment on this occasion. I think you're trying to create the wrong balance, because I don't think you're being ambitious enough. That is not the ambition of a Muslim, that we want to find someone who can earn a good life in this world, but also know what to do and what not to do. We have to be more than that. I think when someone opens, we can go to the next slide if you want. When you open up an Islamic school, If you go to the next slide, please, brother. Hello. When you think about opening up a school, and actually, because there's more teachers here, when you think about working in an Islamic school, or a school which is a Muslim school, you need to know what you're working with and what you're working for and why you are doing it in the first instance. I always start with owners specifically, asking these 3 questions. What's your school? What is the identity of your school? How do you define it? And in order to define it, the number 1 thing is that you have to understand what's your primary objective. Is your primary objective that you want to create hufaz, or you want to create ulama? Is your primary objective that you want to get fantastic results in WAEC? Is your primary objective that you want to get recognized by the Cambridge Authority? Is your primary objective that you want to have IGCSE certification in your school? Is your primary objective that you want to make money? Is your primary objective that you can put your name or your parents' name on top of the school and say, oh, everybody in my family, look, mashallah, look what I have done? What's your primary objective? That's not for me to say, or anyone in this room to say. That's for you to say. Each individual school, that's for you to say. And as teachers, this is also for you to say. Why are you working in an Islamic school? I'm asking you, what's your intention? What's your niyyah? Is it to earn your 20,000 bucks at the end of the month? Believe me, you can do something else. Is it because you're trying to keep yourself connected to the Deen? Somehow hold on to the coattails of little children who are already kind of sin-free and you want to be part of that? Is it because you want to reorganize your life in a way where the Deen and especially your salah can be part of your daily life? Is it because you want to earn halal income? You need to answer these questions. But there's not multiple answers. Primary objective is one. There can only be one primary objective. The next one is subsequent objectives. As a result of your primary objective, what are the next objectives that are achieved with it? You must ponder on this. The next question is, who is your stakeholder? So as a school, the stakeholder and the finance people will know this better than anyone else. When we talk about stakeholders, we're talking about who looks to benefit, who are you looking to serve, who do you answer to? But when you're talking about as an individual teacher, as an individual person, when you ask the question, who is your stakeholder, it's asking you really, for whom are you a teacher in this school? Are you a teacher in the school for the children? Are you a teacher in the school for your own heart? Are you the teacher in the school for Allah? Are you a teacher in the school for your bank balance? Which one? The last one, how do you define success? This is the most difficult one. As a teacher, are you successful because your students have achieved fantastic results? As a teacher, are you successful because the children who you teach in your class have adab and akhlaq, which makes you wish they were your own children? Are you successful if you have met the primary objective that your head teacher has told you that by the end of this week you must finish this assessment? As a school owner, someone in management, how do you define your success? By the number of children that memorize Quran, by the number of kids that go on to become an alim, by the successful choices that they have in the future or unsuccessful choices they have in the future? Is it by how many kids you can get into further education in foreign colleges and universities? Is it by how many people are going to come and congregate when you have your annual program at the end at Ramadan? How do you define success? Because you're asking me to give you a whole presentation on getting the balance. That means already you know that you don't have a balance somewhere. But I don't know which balance you're talking about. Are you talking about financial balance? Are you talking about deen balance? Are you talking about educational balance? I don't know. But I'm asking you this question. I guarantee you, none of you know these 3 answers. So my point that I'm going to make is slightly to disagree with the brother that mentioned about the Islamic finance and options like this. Yes, schools should be run as a business. They should follow business principles. But that's not why most people open up Islamic schools or Muslim schools. Money is not the main reason why teachers go and teach in Islamic or Muslim schools. If it is, then I'm sure you can find other ways to make better money. The reason why people open Islamic schools and the reason why people go and work in Islamic schools, essentially, the answer is for Allah, for His pleasure. But you can't hide behind that excuse. Just because you are subservient to your Lord doesn't mean that you are excusable for providing utterly disgraceful education. Just because you are saying that, yes, I'm doing this as to get the pleasure of my God, that as a result, that some children in your school will never know what the outside world really looks like, that they live inside a bubble. That's not an excuse. In fact, and I'm sure there's enough scholars in here who can correct me if I'm wrong, but Islam, our ummah, is the best of nations. And the best of nations means many things. It means the best in nation in terms of our dress, in terms of our adab, in terms of our speak, in terms of our way that we behave with people. But it also means in the way that we actually educate and better ourselves as well. So the fact that there's almost maybe 1,000 people sitting in this room, it tells me that most of you guys are here because you are already aware that you are not doing something correct. Because if you're doing something correct, you would spend your Saturday doing many other things with your family, enjoying yourself. You wouldn't be sitting here listening to some guy that's come from abroad telling you this and that. If we're going to progress, if we're going to get any balance, first of all, know who you are, know your identity, know why you're doing this. Answer these 3 questions. I'm going to give you an exercise because I can see some people are nodding off to sleep. So inshallah, I'll wake them up. I was a teacher, so I have many different methods of waking people up from sleep. I won't exercise those methods today, but I'm going to ask you to do something. I know this is supposed to be lecture style, but I think there's no point in doing lecture style if we don't take something away. You should do this in your private time. But as an exercise, I want you to all take out your notebooks or anything that you have, a mobile phone which takes notes. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. I don't want you to think of what your own skills are. I want you to talk to the person next to you and ask them what are their primary objectives, who is their stakeholder, and how do they define success. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. I want to hear a loud sound in this room. I don't want to have anyone being shy with one another. You got 2 minutes. Bismillah. I can see lots of smiles. You can't be happy about this. There's nowhere for you to be happy. Just ask the person next to you, what is their primary objective? Why are they here? What's their objective? One minute left. I don't want the volume to stop. Don't mind me, I'm going to take a selfie with all of you people. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد Thank you. The number of schools that I have been to where a teacher can't get their children to shut up. And I have 1,000 people in front of me, and I didn't even ask you to be quiet. Can we go to the next slide, please? So, I think we agree so far that rather than looking at any particular type of education system, and without getting into the nitty-gritty of should we focus on this, or should we focus on that, that actually we should focus on the amana that Allah has given to the parents and that the parent has given to us. Because if you remember this amana, there is no way that you're going to look in front of eyes of a child and tell the child, you are worthless. Or there's not going to be a part in your heart which says, honestly, I hate this child. Because you're playing with someone's amana. It's not about how we feel when we are in a classroom. It's about how the child feels. How does that look in reality? If we go to the next slide, please. The biggest thing that Muslim school teachers have to understand and they fight with all the time is tarbiyah. We understand tarbiyah to mean, how do I discipline my child? How do I make sure that the behavior is not bad? I'm sorry, but you have misinterpreted the word tarbiyah. That's not what tarbiyah means. Tarbiyah is holistic. It's about creating an environment where people can behave in the best possible way. So when you talk about tarbiyah and providing everything so that you get the best out of someone, that's what tarbiyah is. But when we talk about tarbiyah, it talks about detention lists. We're talking about demerits. So we need to reorganize our brain when it comes to this. The next one is adab. When we talk about adab, mostly what we are referring to is whether or not the child gives salam, or whether or not the child will help the headmistress with her handbag, or whether or not a student will allow themselves to be put forward for some voluntary work. Actually, for most teachers, when you talk about, oh, she has wonderful adab, he has wonderful adab, what you're really talking about is when you are teaching, the child does not interrupt you. That's not adab. That's obedience. Are we really teaching our children to be curious? Are we asking them to take from us, or are we just giving it to them? Are we just doing chalk and talk? You look at the board, you just talk. Sometimes I've seen teachers, even they are talking to the board. The students are here, but they're talking to the board. And I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to... If you don't do this, if you don't do this... Do you understand? That's not really teaching, to be honest with you. That's doing a disservice. I have one thing that I've written here which is a bit controversial. It says, keep it where we are. Western liberalism and Islamic revivalism combine to create confusion. Two things, I will explain it in more detail. Western liberalism, we are thinking about how our children can go and further their careers. That is mostly how you define your success. Will they get grades? If they get grades, they will go on and become a doctor, an engineer, a solicitor, or whatever it might be. So we are focusing on end product in terms of job. For jobs, you need grades. That's problem one, Western liberalism. Liberalism means we're talking about money, right? The second one is Islamic revivalism. We have this approach that's been happening for the last 15 or 20 years, which says that actually we almost have this kind of supremacy about ourselves, that Islam is better than everything else. Yes, we know that in our heart, but our attitude cannot be like that. You live in a country, in Nigeria, where you have a 50-50% split. You want to lead this country as Muslims, you need to treat the Christians well. So these two things, when we're talking about forcing our Islamic identity onto students, but students, when they go home, they're accessing the world, but you are giving them this much. What do you think is going to happen? They will be obedient to you, but they will not have the adab of a Muslim. The adab of a Muslim comes from humility, to be humble. Everything comes from humility. How can we have humility when our schools are proud of the fact that they charge 1 million naira per term? So not only do we take the amana from the parents, we give it a good kick, call them numbers, tell them in our heart we hate that child, we're going to charge them for it as well. Brothers and sisters, be very careful, because what you are calling halal money can very quickly become haram for you. May Allah protect us all from this, because we are just conduits. We are just people who are trying to live Islam. Islam is perfect. There's only one example of perfection, that was the Prophet ﷺ. We are definitely flawed. We are guaranteed to have flaws. But our flaws should not impact on the children, on their approach to what Islam is. And I promise you, I guarantee you, our misgivings, our misadventures, our mistakes are driving our children away from our own deen. The thing you have done, the reason why you are trying to open and operate in these schools is the thing that you're driving these children away from. So we must guard our intentions and our actions. Next slide. In 2020, a little 11-year-old child, what is the demand on that child's mind in 2020? I promise you, it's not about learning Amma Juz. That's not what they're thinking about. Being aware of challenges in 2020. The biggest challenge is the thing that most of you have on your laps right now or are using in your hands right now, which is your mobile phone. The mobile phone opens up our mind to so many other things. And you can't change it. You don't even want to change it, because it's also useful, it's also beneficial to you as well. But let me tell you something. Our messages that we are speaking to our children is nothing in comparison to the messages that they're receiving on a mobile phone or a device or a television that you have paid for and that you give access to. So if we are not aware of what that child is thinking in 2020, if we are not aware of the challenges of 2020, then really, how do we know what our parents want in 2020? We assume that our parents want our children to become a particular way. You as a teacher, you make an assumption. If you're teaching in a school which is charging 300,000, 400,000 naira per term, you make an assumption that that parent is also very rich. That parent doesn't need their child to have fantastic education because they're going to be born into wealth anyway. But also, if you teach in a school which is only charging 10 or 15,000 naira, in your heart and in your mind, you might think to yourself, this child will never make anything of his or her future anyway. So whether or not they learn how to do simultaneous equations really is not going to make a difference to the rest of their life. The question is, who gave you the right to make the assumption? If you want to have parents who you understand, you need to have an identity as a school, as a teacher, that they also understand. So there can be no confusion. I think the majority of my talk is about how to get the balance, but I think you need to first of all clear this confusion in your mind. Who are you as a school? If you know who you are as a school and you communicate that to your parents, the parents will then have a choice. I don't like the identity of this school, I'm going to take the child out. Or actually, I fully 100% believe in this identity of the school, and I may even give you qard hasana for it as well. But don't hide from parents. Don't be annoyed when a parent turns around and says to you, your school is rubbish. Don't be annoyed when a parent comes up to a teacher and says, you know what, I'm sending you to your school and I can see that my child has made no progress. And you feel like saying to the parent, actually it's because your child is thick. What are the challenges for our children in 2020? I think you all already understand what I'm talking about. I'm going to move to the next slide because I don't want to kill our time. Okay, we can go to the... Okay, no, let's stop there. There's some things on this slide which are relevant, but I don't want to focus on that. What I want to focus is on, as a teacher, as a head teacher, as an owner, we are all focused on one thing. We had lots of discussion about this yesterday, about summative and formative assessments. Assessment for learning. The owners are telling the head teachers, I want to see data so I can prove to our parents that we are doing well. The head teacher will go to the department heads and say to the department heads, you have not achieved in this particular subject this year, you must improve. How are you going to improve? I need to know where my children are going wrong so I can make intervention strategies. You got to do assessments. If you don't do assessments, how am I going to know? You're going to tell your teachers, as head teachers and owners, that they're not marking their books correctly. As a parent, you look at your child's book and you see it's not been marked. You don't know what the grade is. You don't know how successful, if the child is on an A star, if they're on an E grade, you don't know. We are constantly looking for assessment, assessment, assessment. So here's the important question. When was the last time your school went through an assessment? You are assessing your children day and night, even the weekends. But when was the last time that you yourself, as a school, had someone to come in and say to you, sorry, you're doing this wrong. This is the grade you're on. In order to improve, you must do this. As Muslims, we must evaluate ourselves constantly. I always say this. Muslim is not a noun. It's a verb. It's a doing word. It's an action. You either choose to be Muslim or you choose not to be Muslim. Every morning you wake up, you either submit. Muslim means to submit. To submit, it's a verb. You either choose to submit or you choose not to submit. You have to evaluate yourself. Am I being a Muslim? The moment you're about to sin, you have to question yourself. Hopefully your nafs is overpowered by your good deeds and you are asking yourself, should I carry on with this? And inshallah you decide to go away from the bad deed. But as a school, are you evaluating? But yet you are teaching Islam, but you are not evaluating. So I think evaluation is absolutely key. Most of the times people open up schools and people run in schools, you are not really experts. You have not really understood the difference between pedagogy and andragogy and all of these different types of things. You have not gone out to 100 different types of school and looked at different types of educational institutions and the way that they work and operate. You have not looked at a primary school, a nursery, a secondary school, a university, a college. You have not appreciated those things. Most owners, they are just someone who has got a good intention and that's it. They're not an expert. So what do you think is going to happen? At some point, you're going to figure out, uh-oh, I don't have any balance. Uh-oh, I am not performing according to what I think I can achieve. If you go to the next slide, I'm hoping, and the next one as well, I'm hoping that by now, you would have asked yourself the question, am I doing the children in front of me, am I doing them a service or a disservice? And I hope, inshallah, most of you feel energized and you're thinking to yourself, you know what, I will go away and I will ask myself these 3 questions. I will go away and I will try to do some evaluation. But understand this as well. This feeling doesn't last for very long. This feeling, this energy that you have, at some point you will run out of energy. When you run out of energy, it's like this. It's like a computer going back to default mode. So right now you might feel energized. Yes, we're going to get the balance. Yes, we're going to modernize. Yes, we're going to do this. We're going to revitalize Islam. We're going to make our children interested in Islam. If you're the president of the national of AMIS, you're going to think, yes, fantastic. We're going to make AMIS available to everyone. And then what happens is next Monday, you wake up in the morning and it's hot and you don't feel the same energy. So that's why I ask you, please, the 3 questions that I asked you, make sure you answer those questions. Make sure you go away and internally answer those questions. Because if you don't, you are doing a disservice. Like I said, the halal can become haram, and we should be very fearful of this thing. Just for your benefit, can we go back a few slides so I can have the 3 questions, just in case anyone missed it out. Keep going back. Keep going back. And again. And again. It's about another 2 or 3. Oh no, that's the one. If you have not taken note of the 3 questions, please take note of these 3 questions. In the meantime, I pray that Allah can guard our hearts and our minds and our souls from the evil that can come even out of a good action. Everyone say Ameen. I hope that you've been able to take some benefit from what I've said, and if I've said anything wrong, I implore you to forgive me. Okay? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد. If you have any questions at all, I'm happy to take them. I know that we are running out of time. So I will take your leave from you at this moment, and inshallah the rest of the event goes successfully. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That has been the presentation by our brother Mabrub Ahmed, and he has actually spoken to our hearts as either school owners, school leaders, or teachers. One thing he will want us to remember and hold firmly or ponder upon is the fact that these children that are in our schools represent amana. Amana from Allah to the parents. And in a like manner, amana from the parents to us. So whatever we are doing, we want us to understand the fact that apart from the monetary gains that we may want to use to quantify our success, we are going to be accountable. Are we dealing with them in such a way that when we give accounts, it will be in our favor? It will not be against us. He has also asked us a question or 3 questions. What is our main objective? When we wake up each day and we are going to work as a teacher, what is our objective? What are subsequent objectives? Who are our stakeholders? Are we accountable to the parents who bring their children to us? Or are we accountable to the proprietor who is going to pay the bill? But somewhere, somehow, he will want us to appreciate the fact that beyond the people we can see physically, to whom we are accountable, we are also accountable to God Almighty. And as school owners, how do we define our success? Is it by the number of A's we publish at the end of every external examination? When WAEC was done in 2019, our school made A's. 90% of the students we presented for WAEC got A's in 6 subjects, 9 subjects. Is that our definition of success? Is our definition of success by the number of our graduates who are now in high places? Or is our definition of success by the number of sincere Muslim brothers and sisters we are able to produce at the end of the education they receive from our schools? And they also query our issue of getting the balance. Are we trying to get the balance between the success in this world and the success in the hereafter, or we are trying to get the balance in terms of what we are getting now and what we think we should get that will define our success in material worlds? He asked a number of questions, but I think one thing we want us to remember as we navigate our discussion and as we go back to our respective schools is the fact that these children represent a manna from God to the parents, and by the time the parents bring them to us, the children are entrusted to us as a manna. Whatever we do, either by pseudo quality education or genuine quality education, we are going to account for everything. My prayer is that when we will be called to account, it will not be an argument against us, it will be an argument in our favor. May God Almighty help us.
We appreciate our professor, Professor Abdurazak Olayinka Oniye, the chairman of the session. May Allah reward you abundantly. Jazakallah khairah. During the presentation, we have some of our, if I call you fathers, I think I'm belittling you. Some of our mentors, those people that gave us inspiration, those people that had the audacity to confront the Cicero of Nigeria, Bolaige. Those people that define the meaning of literacy. When Bolaige, as the governor of Oyo State, then said, all the Muhalims, they are illiterate. And we have in us somebody that came out to say, no. Could you open your dictionary and define illiterate? Illiterate is somebody that cannot read and write. Our Muhalims could read and write in Arabic. If you call our Muhalims illiterate, then a Frenchman is an illiterate. We have in our midst Alhaji Kunle Sani, the leader of the youth, our mentor. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Please stand up for recognition. Your presence here has further had picture to what we are doing currently. We appreciate you. Jazakallah khairah. Equally, we have the representative of IET. I tell people that the largest estate owned by an Islamic organization is owned by IET. The most organized organization not only in Africa, not only in Nigeria, in Sub-Sahara. I was courtesy of Dr. Shamsuddin. We were at a forum in Sudan, Khartoum, and we met a woman, I think president of United Nations something, and we got talking. And the woman said, do you know Aisha? I said, yes. Because I know of only one Aisha, and that is Aisha Lemu. The woman said, that is who pioneered the job I'm doing here. And we have the representative of IET. Alaji, please stand up for recognition. Few months ago, IET marked their 50 years of existence. To be 50 years. 50 years, golden years. 50 years. May Allah reward the effort and all those people, the board of trustees and everybody. Inshallah, we are moving to panel discussion. And our panel discussion is going to be anchored by Mabur Hamid. What are we going to do on our panel discussion? This time around, we will say, let us look at the corporate bodies. We have in our midst, we have the MD of Credit Bureau Rating. Before all of them will come, I want to mention the list we have. We have the representative of British Council. We have DQA Director, that is Department of Quality Assurance. For your school to be certified to operate as a compliant school, you need the nod of DQA. We have the big masquerade air. Is going to uncover some things for us. It's going to give us access on how we are going to have more of our Muslims accredited. Equally, we have in our midst, we have the Google group. Google, they have a lot of programs on education. How could we be a Google educator? Don't forget that currently, UNESCO has declared that if you are not Google educator or Microsoft educator, then you need to ask yourself, am I truly an educator? Am I truly a teacher? If you are not Google educator. So we have the GBG for Abuja here, in person of Otuna is here. We equally have NECO representative. NECO is, examination body. They are going to give us something they have. And we have Jais Bank. We have Flexi, Serve. ERC, are they present? Because they called us of recent. Now, what are they going to be doing in the next 1 hour or thereabout? All of them, once we introduce them, they are going to tell us in 5 or 4 minutes, this is what we do in our organization. Then we in turn, because it's a panel discussion, we ask them questions, how it relates to ourselves and our noble profession of teaching, inshallah. Permit me to, first of all, bring in on board our Oga here, and that is Mr. Saliu, the Director of Department of Quality Assurance, DQA, Almighty DQA. Please come forward. Thank you so much. We will remove the podium. Come on, do that, please. Please, lost but found. I think this business card. Okay, it's yours. Okay, sure. Okay, lost but found, please. Please. Equally, we want to invite the British Council. Are they around? British Council? Come up, please. Come up. British Council? You are most welcome. Thank you so much. You are most welcome. Thank you. Okay. We have the Flexi staff. Okay, Mr. Otunla from Google Group, please, you can come upstairs too. You are most welcome. Thank you. Neko. No, Omato. Okay. Neko, please come up. Thank you so much. Okay. Okay. We need, I'm sorry, we need Abduwasi? Okay. Jai's Bank, Flexi Staff, okay. Who is coming up? Okay. Okay. Sorry. Please, we need 2 more seats. No problem. We are sorry. With due regard, we didn't get some confirmation in time. That's what really happened to us. Sorry, please. Flexi staff, Jais, please come up. Huh? Yeah, it's okay like that. Yeah, please. I think I need to do a little bit of a commercial break. We want to appreciate Jai's Bank and Flexi Staff. They are our gold sponsor. They have very, very good package for the school owners and for education. Jai's Bank, you are our partner for life. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I will explain. This project, this conference is highly subsidized, courtesy of Jai's Bank and Flexi Staff. They put in their money, they put in infrastructure to complement the token we have paid to register. Sincerely speaking, we deeply appreciate you. Flexi Staff, coming into school administration software, they are the best. We endorse them for you. Yeah. When all others forsake us, they say we should come. We are endorsing you today for our members and all our schools in diaspora. Take everybody. Assalamu alaikum. I hand over to the anchor of this program, and that is Mabru Hamid. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, so first of all, assalamu alaikum and to everyone on the panel and welcome. We have not the longest amount of time, we have quite short amount of time, so I'm going to give everyone 2 minutes as opening remarks. Of course, we don't have the time for full presentations now, but if you may allow me, after you've all spoken for 2 minutes, I may pick some holes in some of the things that you may say, and that will hopefully help for our discussion. So I'll start with my right side. I think this is Jai's Bank, so you can introduce yourself and speak for 2 minutes or so, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, participants and the high table. My name is Yusuf Issa Jonge. I was here yesterday. We made a very short presentation actually on what schools can benefit from some of our products as a bank. In Jais Bank, the first non-interest bank in Nigeria, and currently we have some partnerships with a lot of some schools in where we have we are located. Unfortunately, we've not been able to reach out to most of the states at the moment. It's peculiar with this kind of industry. You cannot finance, even if you want to do it, you cannot finance people where you are not present. It's very difficult because of the operating environment, the regulatory requirements which you have to comply with. Part of the major thing I will say here because of the time is that we have a couple of products that actually schools can benefit from. Part of the products are the partnership arrangement that we have, which we call the Musharaka, and I saw it in some of the presentations that were done earlier. I believe we've done justice to what Musharaka is all about. And then we have the Ijara. To be precise, you want to acquire, buildings for the sake of running the school. We have a very robust product which you can benefit from. We have... Okay, sorry, please. Maybe we'll take it subsequently. Thank you.
No problem. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be rude. I just want to make sure that we have some discussion as well. So I'm sure we'll hear more about the second product as well. You're from British Council, so you have 2 minutes as well.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Adeshegun from the British Council. And like we all know, the British Council has been in Nigeria for the past 75 years. One of our key core objectives speaks more to education, the entire value chain of education, from school leaders / school owners to principals, counselors, and most important chain on that value chain leg is the students. We have various levels of Cambridge qualifications that we offer, from the primary checkpoints to the lower secondary checkpoints, down to the IGCSEs, to the A levels, to the AS levels, and pre-universities. I make bold to say that we have lots of schools, model Islamic schools that are present here, that we call them Cambridge Associate Schools, partner schools, that are also benefiting from being partner schools with the British Council. Being a partner school opens you to enormous opportunities. And like what he said, how are we treating our students? I said just a few minutes back that they are the most important value in that value chain. How do we treat them? How do we look at them? Are we interested in just becoming partner schools or actually impacting the students that are in our various schools? So for the British Council, we take education very seriously. We intend to bring international opportunities for everyone, everywhere, regardless of the cadre that you belong or whatsoever. That's what we do in the British Council. Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. My name is Salihu Yahaya, the Director, FCT Department of Quality Assurance. And I will be speaking here in the context of the regulatory framework that we have within the FCT. I understand this is an international conference, so what I may be saying may not really apply everywhere, but whatever I say is applicable, and if there are things that are universal, they will be there. And I'll also be talking in the context of basic and senior secondary schools, because I have come across some Islamic institutions, like the ones that they are the Islamia schools that are within the mosque, who come to this department to seek for approval. I want to advise that such institutions are considered non-formal, and they should direct their applications to the Department of Mass Education of the FCT. The office is in Karu, close to the EFCC Academy. That's the area where they can be registered, and I think it's good for them to be registered as such. And where the Islamia schools have the ambition of getting to basic or senior level, they can come to our department, and we're willing to guide them. Again, I want to straight away say that quality assurance, as far as my department is concerned, is with observing your compliance with the minimum standards. That is all we are looking for. The performance level of your school, the level of your product depends on the school management. And in doing that, there are limits to which even as a department we cannot go, because the first stage of your existence as a school is to register with the Corporate Affairs Commission, which gives you the latitude to operate within the context of that. Ours is to come and see how have you complied with extant regulations. And again, my department is not about closing down schools.
We'll hear more about your department soon. Can we just go on to the next presentation?
So we are interested in your growth, not your going down. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If you just pass it on to the next person.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So my role is, my name is Ahmed Tunde Popola. I was the last speaker before we went on break. And I spoke about finance, so I will be ready to take issues around finance. But then because they listed me as MDCLC Credit Bureau, I think it's important for me to see the value that that institution can also add to you. We are a credit bureau. We warehouse all borrowers in Nigeria. All borrowers in Nigeria, we warehouse the data. So nobody will give you any money without contacting that database. For schools, we want to encourage you to bring the data you have on those who are owing school fees. We have some schools that have already done that. They bring the data. Then they also check the database when they want to give services on credit. So if a parent comes and is not ready to pay your fees, you can check whether that person is creditworthy in the first place. Because what you are doing is you are providing services in advance of receiving your money. That's a form of credit, isn't it? Exactly. So to reduce your receivables, to receive your money being taken away, you can leverage on the platform. And when we get for conversation, we'll do more around the discussion. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, my name is Adira Botola. I'm the GBG lead for Abuja. GBG means Google Business Group, and I am also an IT consultant. So basically what I'll be talking about today is about G Suite for Education, but of course it's not just specific things to schools, maybe Google specifically, or, so it's around problem solving. Basically I have experience in, I've worked at universities, and I've actually, been to several schools in Abuja in the last, 6 years or so, from primary to also universities, basically. So I think I'll bring those values, to you, so from A to Z, and I think you enjoy the time. So, you're welcome. Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good afternoon, school administrators, school owners, participants, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Fatima Usman from National Examination Council. Our core value in the council is redefining the future of the Nigerian child through quality assessment. And by doing so, we carry out through our mandate, which is the National Common Entrance, which is carried out annually for secondary school. Those ones we do through our allied and federal government colleges. Mark you, the National Common Entrance Examination, we just do the exam. We carry out only the exams, but we don't do placement. The placement is done by the Ministry of Education. Subsequently, we carry out the Basic Education Certificate, which is BESE, at the end of junior secondary school. Then we have the XSCE external and internal examination. The XSCE external is for school, the XSCE internal first. The SSC internal is for the school-based examination, which is for federal government colleges, allied institutions, government colleges, and private schools. But for SSCE external is for the out-of-school students. Then we equally carry out consultancy services like the SPEC and the Cowbellpedia mathematics competition. From then on, we
I'm going to ask you to move on if that's okay. I'll come back to you very soon to hear more about Nico as well, though, inshallah.
All
if you can move on. Thank
For
you.
more information, please, you can visit our website on www.neco.gov.ng. Thank
We'll
you.
hear more from you anyway, inshallah. Okay, lastly.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Rahma from FlexiStaff. Since our inception in 2010, we've been taking giant strides to reinvent learning. And a lot of us would, would be on the same page with us, because I know a bunch of us are using our software, and that's just one stride out of many. We have solutions for nursery, primary, secondary, and even tertiary institutions. So we'll be taking any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you everyone. Firstly, I want to apologize because obviously we don't have the time for full presentations, so that's why I'm just conscious of the time to make sure that everyone can pray the Zuhr on time, but also to make sure that we hear from everyone as well. So thank you for sticking to the 2 minutes. I'm going to start the discussion, and by all means, there's one microphone there. I'll pass another one over on that side as well. You can switch that on. Yeah, you can pass it in the middle. I wanted to start off by asking the panel. I know actually most of you guys are here from a commercial perspective, possibly looking to win business from the many schools that are here. So it's a good opportunity for you to showcase the products that you have. Of course, for most Muslim schools, fortunately or unfortunately, planned or unplanned, the major restriction is finances. So I know we already have 2 people on the panel who can tell us how schools can access finance. But before we start getting to paid products, maybe if we can hear from the British Council and Nico and even from FlexiStaff as well about maybe some of the solutions that are available virtually complementary. So maybe if we can start off in that regard. And then after that, if I can then get some comment from the Google representative as well, because I know Google does many services for free as well. So you can start, my dear sister, about FlexiStaff.
Okay, so for us at FlexiStaff, it's not just about the finance, right? We are very passionate about education, and over the years, we've tried to actually break ground, right, with our solution. So that's how the school management software came about. That's SAF SMS. So what SAF SMS does, it eases the processes in school, right? So from the administrative process, the teachers, so it's taking us away from the manual way of doing things.
I'm going to stop you because I think a lot of schools already don't have these types of systems.
Yes.
And they may never even think about having this system because they're scared of the costs involved.
Exactly.
Can you tell me why you think a school needs to have this type of system?
Yes, so there are so many reasons, right? I mean, for quality assurance, for example, you actually need to have the system because it leaves no room for errors, right? So when you have to maybe record a student's result and you're doing these things manually, and maybe you send this result to a parent and the parent is telling you, no, my child can't score this, or I've actually paid certain school fees, but, well, the account officer can't track the teller, he has no idea how much you've paid, if it's part payment, if it's full payment. So it just takes away all this, errors that might come about in the administrative processes. So that's just one of the few reasons why they actually need the solution.
So essentially you're saying it's 2 things. First of all, from an administrative perspective.
Yes, exactly, from the account perspective, from the school process itself, for teachers, because it's not all teachers that are permanent teachers. You have some that are just subject teachers. You have class teachers. And there might be issues when it comes to timetable. So
essentially it's about 2 things. It's about your, first of all, your administration, and secondly, it's about collecting data and using that.
Exactly.
So just for our audience here, do you have any complementary products, or what's the most basic entry product that you would have?
Yes, so we have the administrative, that's the basic, right? The result management, that's the basic product. It's the SAF SMS standard product, yes. So it takes care of your results, which is what most schools are actually particular about, right? The result, the ability to send parents the result. You don't have to be physically present in school to have access to your child's report card or midterm results. So you can get that via your mobile phone, emails, text messages.
Fantastic. Yes. And then maybe if I can hear from Nico as well. in terms of course, you're an examination board. But of course, with that, there must come some level of support for schools that you provide. So maybe if we can hear about the support and how people can access, how schools can access that support that they have.
The support we have is during registration. It's not to parents, but to schools. So schools come in, we give them registration guidelines, which they follow through, and by the time they do the offline, then they now do the online registration and pass it to our office. Immediately after the candidate numbers is being processed, and then the school will have the registration numbers and what have you.
So how can a body like NICO assist new schools, for example?
Through accreditation.
Through?
Through accreditation.
Okay.
Through
So presumably NICO is a necessary accreditation, right?
Yes.
So can you explain to me what accreditation with NICO would look like for a school and how it would benefit for them?
A school due for accreditation will go through the quality assurance first. So they will bring in their reports. By the time they bring in their report, based on the report, we'll assess them, we'll go for accreditation and assess the school. We'll have to check through the facilities, their laboratories, their library, whether they have relevant books, the laboratories, whether they have the equipment that is needed, which are functional, not non-functionals. Based on that, their teachers' strengths and weaknesses, whether they have all teachers along those lines. So based on that, we now submit our report to the council. That is based on that they will be called for examination.
Thank you so much. And so if I'm now speaking to the Google representative now as well, so I know myself, as a consultant, when I go to schools, one of the very first things that I say to schools is, you have untold amounts of excellent resources that are free from Google. You have Google for Education, for example. You can have shared email access drives on Gmail. And on top of that, you have G Drive as well, the drive where people can store things on the cloud. Can you tell us specifically for schools how Google can be of benefit? Because I've just mentioned a few things, but maybe you can be more specific.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so for schools, basically, there is a package which is the G Suite for Education. Most people know it as Google for Education. So I don't know if many schools are on board, but what it does basically, it's a collection, like a suite of different applications offered by Google. But for schools, it's actually free. But of course, you know, there are like criteria you have to meet requirements before you end them.
And are those criteria quite difficult for schools?
No, they're not. It's just based on how best each schools see fit the usage of technology. Like, so, let me give you a practical view.
So okay. I want to be useful for our audience. So first of all, how do they register? How do they, get the criteria? Secondly, if they do meet the criteria, then what do they get?
Okay, so the criteria is actually simple. Google expects you to be on like the domain.sch.ng, but I don't want to go into the technical details anyway. But just a school that says, we have been using the Gmail, for years, and I like what the Gmail has done. So can we have like a customized email, also like student name at ABC schools, let's say .sa.ng or staff name. Now it gives, besides the additional level of branding, it allows even your technical teams, your IT team, to think out of the box, to use it in different ways. More like the Google Classroom, for example. What the Google Classroom does, it's also similar to what the CBT system that is being used, let's say, for computer-based testing examination, But the idea now is, you talk about challenges, during your presentation. How can, because the challenges you had like last year, of course, are not going to be the same this year. Things move and things evolve. So how can you use some of those systems now to learn where a particular student is deficient in, let's say, a subject matter, let's say in, I don't know, mathematics, but a particular topic, because based on my own philosophy, I'm also like an academia. I believe to improve someone, you have to work on the person's weakness, because that's how you know the person has grown. So those things are there, and also, YouTube for kids, because of the level of addiction of technology, right? Okay, Google owns Android, if all of us are using Android phones. So So when you wake up in the morning, you use the phone first before you sleep at night, So that level of addiction, it shows that schools have really to take technology serious and have to see how best to use it for productive use, in a way. So for that GSUIT, based on the requirements, I'm willing to help. It's free, but and we can help a lot of schools to work around it. But of course,
from my understanding, the number one difficulty that schools will have is in order to register for the Google education and to access things like the Android platform and YouTube and classroom videos and situations where you don't even need to have a register because you can create the register within the Google Drive, etc., etc. You can set tests and it can be automatically marked. All of that is fantastic. But the biggest problem that most of these people have is that they probably don't have a website. So unless they have a website, Google won't recognize them.
Okay.
Right? Am I right?
Yes, you're right. But I'm also, there are actually free websites from Google, just based on information. So schools that can afford a website, Google has this package which is called Google Sites, right? So once you type it, it's free. Like even domains are as cheap as like 2,000 naira. So of course Google has where they make money from ads and the rest. But for education, it's more like it's philanthropy. They just want to see people get better, schools get better. How can you improve ABC? So for schools that don't have websites, Google has Google Sites, which can give you like brief information about your school, and from there, we can move on.
Fantastic. I just wanted to get the solution because I know that becomes the problem.
Right.
So if I go to the finance expert next, inshallah, I think something that you mentioned in your presentation was absolutely essential, and maybe now you can have the opportunity to speak some more, which is, you said the need to audit and for the need for that audit to be externalized so that you don't internalize the problems. So again, for most schools, when they're hearing something like this, they're thinking, that sounds like 500,000 naira. Why should they do it? If you can perhaps give us your thoughts on that. On externally auditing their financial histories.
All right. Thank you very much. I think it's very important that we have financial records and we keep financial transactions. And when you have done all of this, a third party needs to come in to say, yes, all the records you have kept represent the transaction you have been doing. And so a third party will want to give you money, let's say Jai's Bank, or somebody else can rely on the financial activities you have prepared. That's the whole essence of audit. It's just to give confidence to external people who are going to be dealing with you when it comes to issue of finance, to have confidence that, yes, you prepare books of account, and the way you have prepared it, it represents the operations and the activities of your school.
My question is, why should you said that the audit should be done externally.
Yes.
Why should it be an external audit rather than just your accountant of your school doing the audit? So why is that not enough?
Yeah, so it's not enough because you need people to trust it, to have confidence in the figures, and to be able to relate with it that, yes, an expert who has been trained for that purpose has certified that what we have done is correct and represents the state of affairs of your school. That's the major reason. Otherwise, you could prepare your own account. You can have internally, a lot of you have your bossa who do all the documentation and the preparation of account. But when it comes to requesting for funding from outside your own immediate family or yourself, somebody wants to rely on an external confirmation, which has to be in form of a document. And that's the role of an external auditor. And like I said, it's not expensive. It's not something that is out of the world.
Give us an idea of what kind of budget that someone needs to have for maybe a yearly external audit.
It can be as small as 100,000.
Okay. And obviously upwards to whatever
100,000, depending on the size of the school, the volume of transactions, and so on. And those are the things that determine how much you are going to pay. And if you have a long-term relationship, that also can help. Because if you are going to keep your auditors for 5, 6, 7 years, ordinarily, they won't be charging you, so they don't want to, they just want to charge to recoup their own costs of sending people to you and preparing all those things and the time that they are going to use to prepare your audit. I know that in my own school, we started with about 200,000. Now we're doing around 300,000 because of the range of activities. That's how much it's costing. It's not something so big.
Thank you so much. Before I move to the Department of Quality Assurance, I think the chairman had a question.
I have a question for you, and I have a question for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
When you were speaking, you query or you ask a question about, are we actually running school for profit? You remember? I want you to come back on that, because a number of people are in school business thinking at the end of the day there will be something in it for them. But we have asked the question, what kind of balance are we trying to strike? Now, he has also told us you don't run a school because you want to run at a loss, right? So then, what do we do? And for you, sir, you have told us, get a board, get a management, get a structure. Some school owners here didn't have any of such. Should they just close down, or you have any advice for them? Where should they start from?
Thank you. Thank you very much for your questions, entertaining questions as well. First of all, maybe if you want to answer, and then I'll answer my question as well.
Thank you very much. So, a school for me is just a business. And it doesn't matter whether it's for profit or not for profit. But if your costs keep on consistently being more than your revenue, even if it's an NGO, you run out of the business. That's just the message I was passing. Now, for you to have a school that is sound and sustainable, you need proper governance. What is governance? You need management and you need the board. Let me talk about a board, for instance. Because a lot of us think that my school is just very small. We have only 50 students. No. So day one, you can say, and it's never too late. In fact, as you go back, go and begin to look at how do we constitute a board of governors for the school. The essence of a board of governors is three. There are three things. First is to provide strategic direction for your school. So that will help to answer the question that Mansur asked us. What is the essence of our being? Just like as an individual, just as like family, we should know what is the essence of our being. Unless you answer that question. So the board will help you to answer that question, and they will help you to now direct your affairs towards being focused and without getting out of that something. The second issue is about running your schools in a way that it meets minimum standards. Okay? So because you are a regulated entity, schools are regulated in Nigeria. There are a checklist of things you must comply with in law. The quality assurance people are here. The NECO people are here. There are things they look out for. School will help you to ensure that you are not cutting corners. You are doing things the way you should be done. That's part of what the board will assist you to do. The third one is probably to help you to grow. And growth can come in form of what they can recommend, and it can come in terms of business development. It can come in various ways. How do you go about this? It's very simple. For a board, you can bring people from various sections of the society to help you so that you can have informed and robust discussion whenever you are having your conversation. For instance, you can bring an educationist. Maybe your school is in Wuse. You can bring another school owner onto your board whose school is in Yanya or something where you don't think because he's listening to you, he's going to be getting your own students from. You understand what I'm saying? You can bring a legal practitioner onto your board. Okay? you can bring a finance person onto your board, because these are issues that you keep on discussing from time to time. And you look for people who can help you to be on that board. They are not looking for the money. I'm sure, because I serve on a lot of boards that I don't get anything.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that's, you know, sorry to cut you short, because I just want to make sure we get everyone's answers as well. The board is very important. Governance and management is very important. The question that you asked me as well, I'm going to try and answer in the same sort of method, because I agreed with everything that the gentleman said. First and foremost is your primary objective, right? What's your primary objective? The primary objective cannot be a business. That's the secondary objective, for sure. Subsequently, you must operate as a business. But your primary objective is dependent on you, whether you're opening it for, you know, the succession of the Deen or whatever it might be. But that doesn't mean that like I said, we can't use our Deen as an excuse to hide behind. It doesn't excuse poor management. So another thing that he mentioned was having a business plan. You can't have a business plan 3 years after you've opened your school. Your business plan is 3 years before you open the school, right? So you're planning for the next level up and up and up and up. And I would advise that if any school is operating today without a 5-year business plan, just close down for the next 3 months. Just close down, write a business plan. Because without that, you have no succession. Anyway, my thoughts aside, we'll continue the conversation if we need to. I want to come to the department now of quality assurance, which I think some questions were already kind of raising towards you. Maybe you already know what I'm about to ask you. Most people in this audience probably look at the DQA and see it as something which is a problem that they're going to face and something which they don't want to engage with. So perhaps you can give some encouragement about the things that the DQA does, what its mandate is, and how the department can actually help schools become better, rather than just to come along with a stick to beat them with every now and then.
Thank you very much. Before I answer your question directly, there are some issues that have cropped up here, which I feel should give the quality assurance perspective on them. There's the issue of audit. I mentioned here that the first criteria we accept is that you should be registered with the Corporate Affairs Commission. And that makes your school a corporate entity. And you'll be required to submit audited reports, external audited reports, to CAC from time to time. They may not be asking you, but some things will arise and you need it. Secondly, you are also going to pay tax to the Federal Inland Revenue Service. It is the external audit report that will inform what taxes you are going to pay. So the issue of external auditing is not something that is a matter of a choice. Your corporate status, that CA certificate, renders that a mandatory thing that you ought to do. Now, there's the issue of the school governance structure. The issue of, again, in DQA, we expect every school, in fact, the forms come with the names of the directors of the school. So it means every school must have a board. And we're very particular about the board membership. And of course, what we see is we categorize board ownership and management as 2 different levels. We don't mind if the owner of a school is not an educationist. But we insist that the management of the school must be headed by an educationist.
Can I just ask you a question from that as well, and you can carry on to answer? I think most schools, when they decide that they want to get a board, they try to look for some really high-profile people. Yes. Mostly because they want the DQA to tick them off and say, okay, no questions asked, this person is like this and like that. But the reality of it is, by having such types of people, actually that board doesn't meet very often. And actually that board is not what it's supposed to do, which is to do its internal quality assurance. So do you have any thoughts on that? Perhaps?
Now, we don't look at the face of the directors of the school before we register them. We don't look at the face. No, I understand. I am telling you, we don't look at that.
No, I know. That's why I'm asking you, because I think every school owners need to know this, that you don't necessarily need to have the profile.
No. You have to get a board that is really a board that can interact and engage the school management in its affairs. So, and one thing I want to point out is, I don't have a scientific backing, but because DQA also handles issues about crisis in schools, between staff and the school and management. What we discover is where you have an overbearing owner having influence on the school, these are schools you have more crisis. But schools that have boards and management the way they are, the propensity for them to have issues is quite mild.
I just want to clarify what you've just said there again so that everyone in this room is aware of what you've just said. Schools which have overbearing owners for sure will have more crises than schools that have effective boards.
That is it.
My observation is that most Muslim schools have not only overbearing owners, but all-encompassing power grip holding owners.
Thank you.
So maybe you can give some words of advice of this as well.
Yeah, we're in line with that. So we encourage schools to have boards and to, like he said, I like the way he described the composition of a board. The school is not just a business as it is. It has I think the presenter spoke for more. So let the board really be a board. Let every board member have a say. Let the management make their professional inputs. We've had schools that even have hired consultants, and they disagree with the consultant because the consultant has to do the professionally correct things. And we come across these issues, and then we just begin to wonder, why do you hire somebody to consult you, to consult for you, and then you don't want to comply with what the person said, which is in line with what is professionally correct. Now, coming to your question about encouraging. Our experience, essentially, especially with Islamic faith-based schools, is lack of knowledge. DQA, like I said, we are not out to close schools. We are not out to bring you down. We are there to bring you up. If you are free as an individual, as a group, to establish any school anywhere you want to establish. But again, if you want information, come to us. We are going to guide you and direct you as the necessary steps. Some school owners will go to Federal Ministry of Education, some will go to ERC, some will go to several areas before they come to the right spot. I have come across somebody who has spent almost 10 million naira trying to establish a school in FCT. And at the time he came to us, say, look, you just need 40,000 naira to buy the form and the guidelines. That's all you need to start with.
I think, that's really important. Thank you for your feedback. Yes. I think that, what we often do is we often try and, when we realize there's a problem, we often try and figure the problem in the most complicated way that's possible. Whereas we should do the easiest one. This whole department has been set up to look after the education in Nigeria, and it's available and accessible to everyone, and we need to make sure we take advantage of that. Moving on.
Sorry, let me just make one point quickly. Again, no school starts and achieve the highest standards in one day. There are processes, there are stages you pass through.
Absolutely.
At best, if you don't meet the standard we want, we give you provisional approval, and you can continue to operate on that as you are improving your system until you get to the level where we can give you the full approval. So feel free, come around. We will guide you and then see how you grow. And we have seen so many of our schools coming up now, and we are giving them the right guidance. But please, make sure you start talking to DQA officials at the zonal levels, and if you have issues with them, come to our office in Jabi. We're willing to.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
I'm going to move on to the British Council. The question I have towards the British Council is, for a lot of schools, the British Council represents an elite institution whereby a school can. I'm going to finish in 5 minutes, inshallah. Yeah. Okay. So the question is, it actually can be quite elitist. Most real big schools will approach something like British Council to try and get accreditation, whereas the smaller guys may think, it's going to cost us a lot of money. Can we access the British Council? Are we ready for the British Council? Maybe you can give us some information for some of the smaller schools in the room today who can look at the British Council for accreditation to make their schools seem more legitimate and give it a higher status as well.
All right, thank you very much. One thing that we've noticed is there's this one word that everyone likes to use, when you're opening a school. That one word is called international. It's a very simple and sweet word. And yes, you can all relate with it, right? Very simple and very sweet. But when you tell yourself that you are international, hello, you had better step up to the plate. All right, so one thing about the British Council is we are not exclusive in nature. We do not in any way try to put some schools as elitist and all of that. No, we don't do that. That's why we have different categories of products that we can give out and churn out to schools. one thing that came to my mind while he was talking, I don't know if anyone has heard about connecting classrooms. One thing the British Council does is that we try to bring international curricula and try and mix it with the curriculums that we are using in our various schools. That's one thing the connecting classroom does. Another thing that it does is that it helps to prepare our teachers. You know, I've come to realize that one thing that is very important for our wards is the teachers teaching them. And I have also noticed that, I'm sorry to say, I'll be very blunt, our teachers do not want to self-develop.
So I'm going to ask you that question actually, because you know self-evaluation obviously is very important for teachers, but what does the British Council do to support teachers to do that? So when a teacher is not able to necessarily, the school may have taken on, you know, a foreign accreditation of some sort, GCSE, AS level, whatever it might be. Yeah. The teacher themselves are being paid $25,000, right? So they don't know how to necessarily do it. They haven't been trained to do it. What will the British Council do to support a teacher like that?
I said something about it being in various categories. We have the face-to-face training that it's mainly for our partner schools, quite expensive. But there's something called the Teacher Knowledge Test, TKT. Various modules. The TKT, one module is as, I want to say as affordable as 15,000. One module is as affordable as 15,000.
So what does a module like that look like?
Now, each module, we're talking about classroom management, curriculum management, lesson planning, teaching English as first language or second language. These are various things that you would learn. British Council makes this affordable. But lo and behold, what I will see 100 names available for my face-to-face, which is quite expensive, and I will see just 3 names for TKT that is very affordable. I've come to realize that it's because of lack of information. Questioning is free. Please, be very free to approach the British Council. There is always something for you. It brings me back to that confidence. I believe it's something that must have been addressed. Our teachers need to be confident to ask for what they deserve. Do you understand? Walk into any British Council office, you want to make inquiries about this training. I mean, I had an encounter with one recently. She came in, she was just saying she wanted to make inquiries about exams. And madam, have you done your due diligence? What she said was GRE. We don't do GRE in British Council. And I looked at, you are a teacher, you're coming to the British Council, and you're talking about GRE, where you should be talking about IGCSEs, you should be talking about A-levels, you should be talking about checkpoints. Brings me back to that, what are we teaching our students? How are we self-developing? How are we researching? These things are free, by the way. Connecting classrooms is one free tool. It's very simple. All you need to do as a school is to go to the British Council website, register. You'll be partnered with a UK school. So basically it's like a transference of knowledge. But I'll be honest, we really do not see a lot of traction.
I think, you know, you've raised some important points, and I think some valuable points for a lot of schools to take on board here, which is through something like the British Council, you have access to a level of education and training which you probably can't necessarily give right now and probably can't even afford to do as a continuous thing throughout the year. So why not take advantage of some of the modules that are available for, as you said, as little as 3,000, but also to make it as part of a CPD for your staff members, your teachers, that they can take some of these courses maybe once a year, twice a year, so that they can improve and professionalize as well. As important as it is to Islamize our curriculums, it's also very important to professionalize our staff forces as well. I'm going to give you 10 seconds to finish off, and then I need to move on.
Okay, so there is something we've also noticed. It's a debacle of school owners. You get to see that you train your teachers, you send them on trainings, and before you know it, yes, you can all relate with it. The teacher has gone. We try to advise school owners when you want to send your teachers on trainings like this, because it said something about teachers just earning 25. We have that case where the school owner has to augment. School owners try to sign like bonds to encourage them to give back because you have invested in them. Most school owners don't do that, or they try to be very rough in executing that and going legal. You don't need to do that at all.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to Jai's Bank, and for the
A number of school owners who want to access facilities from JAIS, but it appears there are bottlenecks. Go and bring this for a loan of 200,000. You come, go, come, you know, things like that. And what can you do to facilitate? I understand what Alhaji Tunde Popola said, that you need to get external auditor's report to guarantee that, yes, you are credit worthy. But then here is a person who is banking with you.
So I'm gonna take on from that question if you that he's asked as well, and I'm just gonna change it a little bit. So you please feel free to answer his question as well. The question is really, a school might have already, you know, met the criteria that you've asked of them. So you've asked them to externalize their audit, they've done that. You've asked them to present a business plan of, you know, why you should finance them with, you know, 10 million, 15 million naira, whatever it might be. They've done that for you. They've presented the case. They've given you their facts and figures. They've given you the budget, projected forecast, etc. And yet they're still not hearing a positive response. How does that happen, firstly? So I think that's very similar to the question that the chairman's asking. And then secondly, moving away from that, because I know that that's quite a pressurized question. I want to give you an opportunity to also talk about the opportunities of JAIS as well. Apart from schools coming to you and giving you a proposal, do you have anything external where JAIS Bank goes to schools and offers solutions as well?
Okay. Assalamu alaikum once more. Let me first of all respond to your requests. Really, before I will answer him, let me make this very clear. A bank really is a highly regulated, banking generally is a highly regulated industry. If you want to ask for a facility, just like my brother here have said, there is a CRC database which you have to pass through. There are records that are passed to that CRC. But even before that, I will advise what we see every day with our people, particularly the Islamic schools, is in the opening of their accounts, you find that you don't even have the requisite requirements to even open their accounts. We go to the extent of even taking some people through the process by going to the regulators, the people doing the registration, advising them on step by step, even going physically to tell them that go to social department and do your registration. Please, if you have, because most of the schools actually graduate from a mosque to probably like an NGO, and then later registered as a school. Yes, some people start in a mosque. You start, like an Islamia. From there you move to a proper school, because that's what we see. The documents presented when you want to open an account, that's what we see. The few that I'm not saying everybody, but most of the Islamic school, that's the challenge. And today, aside from you providing your ID card at the point of opening account, we have what the BVN. BVN is a basic requirement for account opening. You must have an ID card with a name that tallies with what you have on your BVN. This is an area that we are not doing well at all. Honestly, you see mismatch in names. So all these processes of registration, we need to take it serious. We need to know people that are actually, you want to do a business, you must have your records straight. If those records are not straight, you bring it to a bank, we can't even establish the account.
So I'm going to ask you the question that presumably if a school comes to you and say, for example, some of their documents are not up to date, they're not up to scratch, then I assume that you would provide them support and service to at least address which areas that they've got wrong and give them advice on how they can get it right. Am I right? Or
yes, basically that's what we do with most of them today, particularly the Islamic school. Unfortunately, the other side, the conventional people, you find that they'll come with all their documents. Why is it that it's us that are always lacking? It's really a challenge to us.
I understand. And maybe
So,
if you move on now to talk about some of the products,
Yeah.
how do you go and, how do schools approach you for products? Do you go and approach schools? How does it work?
Well, we organize for us. Unfortunately, we are not in most of the locations. I can talk about, I've seen a lot of people from Mina here. We don't have a branch in Mina. But we were able to even finance a school in Mina. You can imagine going to Mina to do collections for school fees. You know, it's not an easy thing. But we try as much as possible to have forums to explain to, particularly in the mosque, we try to explain some of these requirements to the people. But I'm happy that today we're in a forum like this where we will be sharing going forward.
And very quickly, I'm going to ask you this question as well. So say, you know, there are schools here that are very new schools or very small schools, right? So they don't necessarily have a huge history, financial history to be able to give to you. They don't necessarily have a huge amount of finance to show you either. So what does a school like that have to do in order to get some financing from you guys?
We are a bank, so we have intervention funds coming from the CBN specifically for this kind of businesses. They have a lesser requirements for banking and assessing financing. For this smaller, we can give you up to 10 million naira for smaller structures like this. If you meet the regulatory requirements, you are entitled to such. They are classified under SME programs. But the unfortunate thing is what the auditor just said. You find that you cannot have some trace of whether it is being properly managed or not. Unless we are able to physically establish this, we cannot be able to give out, because the money we are giving out is an amana as well. We should not forget about that. The bank too is holding this money or deposits as amana of the people that they are investing in the bank.
I'm so glad that you finished with that, because I think sometimes when we're thinking about banks, and especially for financing for our schools, and we're so stringent, we're so strict about the fact that this finance must be halal, but yet we are not having any thought process about where this money comes from as well, and that also is an amana, and more important than all of that is a risk coming from Allah directly. So we should also protect and guard that. I think the President will be very happy that I've started our session with one of our sponsors and I've ended with another one of our sponsors. Believe me, that was absolutely planned. I think this session has been very useful, and I want to thank the participants as well. And finally, maybe a closing remark from the chairman as well, if he wants to just conclude our session as well.
We want to thank everybody for staying through the session, and I want to implore us, our learning point from our interaction is that we have seen the representatives of various organizations. The NECO is here, the Flexi Surf is here, the Google people, they are here, and credit bureau, you can understand if somebody is defaulting, people who have children in your school and they will not pay, they will go to another school. Alaji is here. Let us work with them. I want to believe and I want to implore the representative of JAIS, maybe you will do us a favor by getting something like a handbill spelling out what people will require to be able to access facilities from you, because opening account with JAIS is a kind of bottleneck. Accessing funds is also a kind of bottleneck. But if people know in advance what they will be required to present, I think it will go a long way. And there's something the British Council man said, I want to believe we can key into that. Self-development. He has said that about our teachers. A number of them do not want to develop themselves. Right? It is good for your benefits. While you are teaching in a school and you are developing yourself for the benefit of that school today, but you are also developing yourself for your own tomorrow. And I want to believe our schools will benefit if we key into the program. There are modules online. All you need to do, access the module, get your school registered, and you can use that for the development of the school. We will surely go places. Once again, we want to thank you. And after Salat, I want to believe we are meeting here again to conclude today's program. On behalf of the organizers, thank you and God bless.
So Jazakallah khair. Thank you for everyone on the panel. Just a reminder, we have Zuhur Salah now followed by lunch, and we will resume again at 2:50 when we will have a mini AGM. It's a reminder for all delegates to stay behind for that and for all facilitators too as well. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.